Our Wendy's Male High School Athlete of the Week is currently the #1 ranked wrestler in Class 5A at the 160-pound level. He is off to a fantastic start this season. Caden Walker, a junior from Shawnee Heights Wrestling, is our guest. And Caden, let's just start there with kind of a big picture view of what your season has been so far. Again, as I mentioned, top ranked in 5A at 160. What's been clicking so well for you to start your junior season?
At first, I had surgery back in November, beginning of November, and so I ended up missing 2 weeks of practice at the beginning of the year, and so that got me off to a slow start. And then just from there on, I've been putting in work outside of the wrestling room and doing my own workouts, running by myself, and then showing up to practice and putting in the work there.
How difficult was it for you to miss that time early on in the season when, for most athletes in really any sport, I know you're a multi-sport athlete as well, so you know this exactly well, it's hard to kind of get started when everyone else is 2 weeks ahead of you, especially when you're recovering from something. What was that kind of like for you, that acclimation process to the season?
I was just really behind compared to everybody, especially on my cardio, since I couldn't really move and do too much. I was laying in bed most of the time after my surgery, so I got way behind on my my cardio aspect. And so getting in the wrestling room with everybody, they've been wrestling for 2 weeks. I was a little behind on the cardio and just my muscles weren't as prepared as most of them were. But eventually, after like a week or two, I was back into it. So
we're talking to Caden Walker, a wrestler for Shawnee Heights. He is our Wendy's High School Male Athlete of the Week. Caden, before we get on to some of the goals you had for this season, because you've had quite a career already at Shawnee Heights wrestling, but let's go back to this offseason. And for everybody, it's been such a crazy year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What is it like training as an athlete, period, but specifically for wrestling when you're so close to other people and it's hard to train without having that kind of contact? What is training for that like during such a strange time when people are just naturally so distanced apart?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to wrestle with mask on, and, we have to do our social distancing aspect. We have to keep our distance with other people in the wrestling room. That way we're not all in such close contact. But with our partner, obviously, we're right next to each other. But in the wrestling room, we're just about 6-10 feet apart with everybody, wearing our mask, doing the thing to keep everything limited. So you just got to follow the rules. I mean, you can't really follow 6 feet with one person since you have to wrestle with a partner. You can't just wrestle with nobody. So that's
going into this season. You're dealing with the pandemic. You're dealing with recovery from surgery as well that slowed your start to the season a little bit. What are some of your goals going into this year, if you can think back to when this winter season started? Something you were hoping to do, or maybe something by this point you were already trying to have accomplished?
Last year, like the last 2 years, I had 64 pins racked up in my career so far in the first 2 years. And I was going for the high school pin record in Kansas, which is 130. So I was practically halfway there. So I was 66 away from it. But, the shortened season because of COVID, I'm only going to get a certain amount. So next year, it's depending on how the season goes, it's going to be tough. But I think it would have been accomplishable without COVID. But with COVID, it's going to be a lot harder to get. But yeah, that was one of my main goals coming into the season was, just getting on the map, pinning everybody, and trying to make it to the state finals and win a state championship.
We're talking to Caden Walker, a junior wrestler for Shawnee Heights, our Wendy's High School Male Athlete of the Week. Going into a season, and you're just a junior, and you mentioned the shortened season, and you still got one more year, but to have a goal that is, frankly, as ambitious as that sounds like something from someone who has a lot of drive and a lot of passion to be, great, but also for the sport as well. Kind of take me back to your start in wrestling, and I know, again, you're a multi-sport athlete. Is it your #1 sport? Is it something you hope to do in the future as well?
Baseball, I'm back and forth with baseball. It just depends on, I don't know, just a time period. Like when I wrestle, it's wrestling. That's my main sport. I love wrestling. But when it comes to baseball and I'm playing baseball, baseball is my favorite sport at the time. But it just depends on what I'm doing and just goes back and forth. But I started both sports when I was 3. And so that's just basically my background. My dad was my coach for about 10 years. And then that was in kids club. And then once I got into high school, Coach P, obviously has been my coach, but Coach P has taught me ever since I was little. My dad learned a bunch of stuff from him. So I basically learned most of the stuff I know from Coach P.
Looking ahead to the rest of this season, you mentioned that the pin record is going to be a little more difficult due to the fewer number of events this season due to COVID-19. Do you have any team goals or individual goals, maybe a new number you've set for yourself, or just some ideas for what you hope your team at Shawnee Heights accomplishes during the rest of this season?
I hope, for our team, I want a couple of us to, last year we had 13 go to state. And so that was a pretty big accomplishment because my freshman year, we only had 8 people go to state, and we had 9 seniors, and last year we had a whole bunch of sophomores and 2 freshmen. So it was just, we had 13 wrestlers go, and just one blood round at regionals. One of them didn't go, so it was pretty upsetting then. But this year I want to see everybody go to state and hopefully have a couple of us place. But as an individual goal, I just hope to make the state finals and win a championship for myself.
Well, Caden Walker is absolutely on the path there. Currently the #1 ranked wrestler in Class 5A in the state at the 160-pound mark, and he is our Wendy's Male High School Athlete of the Week. Caden, thank you so much for taking some time for us today, and good luck with everything else the rest of this season.
Thank you.